Minimize.
Yes, ma'am, you are there.
Good afternoon, dear students. Today the topic which we will be covering is something very important and something which forms the backbone of any organization you work for. Good afternoon, dear students. Today the topic which we will be covering is something very important. Just one moment, we are just fixing some technical glitches and we will start. So interestingly, budgets is also about fixing glitches. So we always make really good budgets so that we do not run into glitches. But life is such that you have to plan for every single contingency.
I think you went to.
So as you can see, the topic is budgets. So lots of times you will be asked in your department, are you at par with your budgets? So before we actually jump into the topic, let me just talk to you about something which is very, very close to your heart, and you will realize that you deal with budgets on almost a daily basis, or rather you used to deal with it on a daily basis, which is your pocket money. So so when you initially, when you were growing up, your parents must have wondered how much pocket money to give you. So you might have done a quick calculation and told them that your cell phone bills, that you need money for your cell phone bills, the bus fares, something to eat, um, something to buy, gifts for your friends, and you came up with an approximate amount. And an amount was fixed which your parents gave you. So that, what the planning which you did to reach to the amount that you needed for the pocket money, that itself is budgeting. So now if you were within the amount your parents gave you to spend, you were on budget, or rather you were on par with your budgets. If you spent more than they had given you, then you were overspending, you were definitely beyond your budget. And if you were spending less than the amount that they had given you, then that means you had done some really good planning, plus you could use that money to do save up for something nice for yourself or maybe even for them. So the frequently heard statements are, you will always hear them, are you adhering to budgets? Budgets affect everything. A budget is telling where your money should go instead of wondering where it went. And remember, a goal without a plan is just a wish. Hello? Okay, fine. স্টুডেন্ট বলছে স্ক্রিন দেখতে পাচ্ছে না, স্ক্রিন রাইটে হয়ে গেছে।
Faster.
All right. So these are some of the thoughts. These are very famous quotations and thoughts behind planning a budget. So remember, so from these only we can get some ideas about what a budget is. All right. So remember, budgets affect everything. You have to plan where your money should go instead of at the end of the year you're wondering where it went. And remember that a goal without a plan is just a wish. So a budget is a plan. That's the bottom line. A budget is a plan, and it is a plan for money. So what is the definition of budgets? A budget is a plan for the future, like I mentioned, and which an organization aims to fulfill. It differs from a forecast. Budgets are blueprints and priorities. So here there's another very interesting word used, which is forecast. What do you mean by the term forecast? So forecasts are normally based on assumptions, and it is our wish of what we would want to do, and we feel that these are the things which are going to happen on the circumstances, whereas a budget is based on hard facts, is based on statistics, is based on your past performances, it's based on future events which have already been planned and been booked, and it quantifies your assumptions. It gives it a quantity, it gives it a figure. So forecasts are assumptions, and budgets quantifies it. It gives it a figure which we try to make sure is achievable and which we can attain. So keeping this in mind, but remember, budgets are blueprints, and they also help you prioritize your needs in an organization. So just the way when you're building a skyscraper, or you're building your house, you normally just you know your land. You know you cannot go beyond this particular land. So on the basis of the land, you contact an architect, you tell the architect your requirements, and he prepares a blueprint. So the blueprint tells you, so you say you want a large drawing room, you want 3 small bedrooms. So he will quantify it in the blueprint. He will say your drawing room should be 10 feet by 15 feet, your bedroom should be 10 by 9 feet, and he draws it out. So on the basis of your blueprint, the houses are begun to be built. Unless your blueprint is not finalized, no construction will take place. So remember, blueprints, so budgets, without your budgets being in place, no money is sanctioned, no capital expenditure is allowed until these have been set in place. So what are the uses of budgets? So since you have realized how important budgets are, but there must be some other uses for it as well. So budgets help you plan. That's the number one use. It helps you plan. And budgets are normally made on a yearly basis. So it's the plan for the So this year I will plan for next year. This year I will make my budgets for next year. It helps me allocate my resources. So in the case of the building, in the case of the land, You allocated certain amount of the land for the garage space, you allocated certain amount of the land for the garden, you allocated certain amount of space for the driveway, and the rest of it was the house. So in the same way, you know you have X amount of money and you have to allocate those resources. So some will go towards salaries, some will go to say renovations, some will go to buying new equipment for your restaurants, maybe upgrade the chairs if possible, or maybe give it a coat of paint, or maybe some other new forms of advertising that you could look at. So budgets also helps you set targets. So your plan is in place and that plan is further broken up into smaller targets. So each person is told that this is what your target is. So coming back to the house, each person in the team will be told, okay, you are responsible for the flooring of the bedroom, you are responsible for the completion of the toilets, you are responsible for the drawing room. Also, it helps you calculate the break-even point. So while we are working in a business, we know what our plan is. We know what our target is. But do we know at what point are we making a profit or are we making a loss? So coming in terms of F&B or coming in terms of a restaurant, as simple as that, we have to know that in a day, I have to do 50 covers to break even. If I do beyond 50 covers, ideally I should be doing much. If it's a 100 cover restaurant, I should be doing 100 covers or 150 covers. But if I know I have done below 50 covers, my break even point that day is a loss. So maybe the next day I have to work harder to be able to do more covers, to be able to achieve my break even point and go over my break even point. So break even point is the point which defines whether is the amount you need to make which will help you sustain your business. So if I go below my break even point and I'm consistently going below my break even point, then I might as well shut shop. Let's close up, let's sell everything, or we have to change our business plan. Budgets helps plan within the department. So within the department, you're able to break it down further. You can tell each station what they are supposed to do. You can ask, the chefs can also help you achieve your budgets. In fact, they further, as we will see, they also have a very important role to play. So a very good coordination between your support departments and your department will help you achieve your budgets. So you should, so F&B will also rely on sales and marketing to help them achieve their budgets. They'll rely on front office, because if the in-house guests say, oh, we can't find this restaurant, or can you suggest where I can have a quick beer, they'll know exactly where to send you. Or do you know what time your happy hours are? Front office will be able to guide you to the right places. So coordination in a hotel scenario is very, very important. It helps you monitor and control. So you are able to monitor your performance, and if you see if you're going right as per budget, it's great. But if you see some of your costs are going up, you can look into those costs and it can help you control those costs on a weekly basis. Instead of at the end of the year, you suddenly realize, oh my God, the AC costs are so high. Maybe we could have shut it off in the afternoons when there was no business. So if for 1 week, if the AC has been on throughout the week, it's okay. But you've realized it. So from the next day onwards, the moment the last guest leaves at lunch, we shut the AC off and then put it off half an hour before the dinner service starts. So that's how we are able to monitor and control our expenses. It also helps you measure and assess performances. Very, very important. So actually the management uses this as a tool to know how, say the F&B, so the F&B manager will use this as a tool to assess the performance of the restaurant managers. So the target has been set. It's very simple. Did you achieve the target? Were you on your budgets? So this helps you, because you already have these realistic targets set. It's very, you yourself can judge how your performance has been. So if your restaurant is doing well, if there have been minimum complaints, if you are achieving the number of covers as per the budget, you are doing great. You don't need an F&B manager to tell you that you're doing a good job. You yourself will know because you have been told what to do and you are working very hard to achieve it along with your team. And since during the course of making the budget, you've allocated the resources, you've planned it so well. So through the year, you see your performance, you see how the restaurant is faring, and you're able to see the loopholes. And then you can, on the basis of this, budgets will help you improve your plans. So you'll see, okay, maybe we should have kept more money aside for promotions, or maybe we should have kept we really need to, maybe we can increase the number of covers in the restaurant because it's doing so well if we introduce community tables. So this is how we can, budgets help us improve our performance as well. So there are some methods of budgeting. I'm just sticking to very simple 3 methods of budgeting because otherwise it'll just get too much for you all. So the first way of budgeting is incremental budgeting. So this is in a running restaurant. So you have joined as the F&B, you have joined as a restaurant manager, and what do? You use last year's budget as a basis for next year. So what you do, you put in a 10%. So obviously we should always strive to be more than what we were last year. So for sales, you might put in covers should be more. So you should put in 10% more of covers. Prices, if your prices of fruits and vegetables have gone up, if inflation has gone up overall, you could increase your prices, but not too much, because that might also lead to you losing some customers. And you make adjustments on your previous year's budgets. So what happens if it's a new organization? What happens if it's a new restaurant? So then all budgets are done from scratch, right from the beginning. This is called zero budgeting. So we literally have to think. We don't know how many people are going to be coming. We've made a 50-cover restaurant, but we don't know. So this is a clean sheet. So we will probably take, say, we'll do 50% every day, and on weekends we'll do 100%. And then you'll evaluate your performance, which will automatically become incremental budgeting. So zero-based budgeting is done in cases when you're starting from scratch. So your expenses, you know your expenses because that's what you're going to be spending on. But how much of money you are making there are certain tools to be able to do that, which we will discuss later on in this slide. So zero budgeting is normally done for places which are absolutely new, for new businesses as well. So if you're starting a business from scratch, you would probably use zero budgeting. So that is why they always say start small. And if you see a good response, then you expand your operations. What are flexible budgets? So flexible budgets, your budgets are set, but you keep a 10% variant or a 20% variant. That it's okay if you go 10% below budget, or you go 10% more than budget, or your expenses vary a little bit. So at this point, I just want to make one thing very clear, that if we are talking about expenses, then you should definitely be on budget or below budget, and ideally you shouldn't go over budget. But where it's sales, we can go over budget, and in that case you shouldn't be under budgets. So this is the budget cycle. So like I told you, it happens on an annual basis. So normally just before, so say in the Indian context, so your busy period is Christmas, like everybody knows. Your weddings have happened in December as well. Your pujas have happened, and Christmas comes in. So that's your holiday season. And just as Christmas and New Year gets over, your financial year is going to begin on 1st April or 31st March. So normally January is when you start preparing for your budget, and February is when you start finalizing it, so that by the time your 1st and then March is spent for getting approvals. So by the time your new financial year begins, you are ready with new budgets. So you use the data of your entire year to prepare the budget. So all sorts of reports are brought in, cover reports, sales, your APCs, plus the previous year's budgets are brought in. You have to study them thoroughly, of seeing the years, the days where you were not able to meet your budgets and the days where you were able to. And on the basis of all that, you prepare your budget, you put in the items that you need, the bigger expenditure items. Maybe you need a new coffee machine, maybe you need a new tea coffee carafes, maybe you need to change the side stations. So you write in all of that, you send it for approvals. So approvals, so remember, this budget is part of a bigger budget. So we'll be talking about that on the next slide. So in the approval stage, what they do is they compare, in a hotel, they compare all the other budgets and see if this budget is in sync with those budgets, and if it should be not too much, not too less, it should be realistic. And once your approvals are put in place, then the F&B manager, like the way you see it in the parliament, the finance manager announces the budget for the year. So the F&B manager or the general manager announces the budgets, and then they are further broken down into smaller parts and given to each person to be able to do. So we'll be talking about that also. So your execution starts in April, and then evaluation happens. We don't wait for so year end as an evaluation, but normally an evaluation happens sometimes weekly, sometimes bi-weekly, and sometimes monthly as well. So there is a 6-month major evaluation which happens in 6 months, but even that should not come as a shocker, because you have been evaluating your performance consistently week by week. So when this 6 months comes in, you're prepared. You're prepared with your facts and your figures, and you know the reasons why you were doing well or the reasons why you were not doing well. And then again the cycle starts. So this is what the budget cycle consists of primarily. So F&B plays, so for food and beverage, F&B plays a very important role. It has to get it approved by accounts or the financial department. And when we see the larger picture, you will come to know how all of them help as well. So how are budgets prepared? So you first study, so we look at all the external factors. So this is a, what do I say? This is a very crucial time for all the people who have made budgets, because of the coronavirus, everybody's budgets have to be thrown out of the window and new budgets have to be made, because this is something which nobody expected. But before this period, and hopefully after this period, how are they prepared? So you look at external factors. So you see the political situation in the city. You see whether elections are coming. You see weather patterns. You see whether there are going to be major conferences, etc. in the city. All of these will play, whether there's a new hotel coming up next door or not. How many more restaurants are opening in the city? So all of these are your external factors, which actually you have no control over, but they could affect you and your business. So if the government decides to build a flyover in front of your hotel, then you have to go and talk to the government and say, please make sure that our guests who come to the hotel are not affected. So these are all the external factors that we have to keep in mind while budgets are being prepared. So so those are your external factors. So within the organization, we look at what happened last year. So remember that. So they say this is an incremental budget. So we look at what happened last year and what are we going to do in the future. So if the company says we want to be more aggressive this year, we want more business, so we want a 20% increase. So that has to be factored in while making your budget. Key factors is likely to be sales. I'll tell you about that. So if it is sales, in most for hotels, it's definitely sales. So sales is further broken up by product, by region, by department. So by product, you are selling rooms, you are selling spas, you are selling laundry. They are all your components which will contribute towards your budget. By region, so if it is one big hotel chain, so how much business will Kolkata give us? How much business will Mumbai give us? How much business will Delhi give us? Will give our hotel. Mumbai will send how many people here? Delhi will give how many people here for our business? And by department, so if it's only F&B, what is our revenue from in-room dining? What is our revenue from banquets? What is our revenue from coffee shop? So all these are further broken down. So here I'll just show you a short video. I hope you are able to hear it.
In this video, we're going to talk about the master budget. And the master budget, it's important to note, is not actually one budget. It's not like one really large budget for the entire firm. It's actually a series of interrelated budgets. So it's a series of budgets. And these budgets are going to detail basically the sales, production, and financial goals for the firm. A series of budgets that deal with the firm's goals, and how the firm is going to get there. And then ultimately, when we're thinking about the output, when we have this master budgeting process, what we're looking to come up with is a cash budget, which is going to be really important in terms of determining whether we have enough money to make it through the different quarters during the year. Maybe we're a seasonal business and we do most of our business, our sales in the fourth quarter for retail holiday shopping, and we said we want to make sure we have enough cash in the beginning, and so we do this cash budget. And then also we're going to have a budgeted income statement and a budgeted balance sheet. Those are going to be basically the final output of this master budgeting process. So when we think about putting together this master budget, this series of interrelated budgets, it's all going to start with coming up with a sales budget. So when we think about our sales budget, that's really the most important, or I should say most foundational budget that we're going to be making, because without the sales budget, we're not going to be able to make a lot of the other budgets. For example, our next budget is going to be the production budget. Now, if you just think about the production budget for a moment, we're going to need to know how many units we're going to have to produce, right? We have to say, okay, how many units to produce. But how can we know that if we don't know the sales budget of how many units we expect to sell? So if we say, okay, well, we're going to sell 10,000 units, that gives us an idea of how many units we're going to need to produce. Now, you might say, okay, well, where do we come up with the sales budget? How do we put this together? Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to have to talk to the marketing department. Let's put MKT. So we're going to need a marketing forecast of sales. Right now, that's really not an accounting function. That's really not. It's a little beyond what we're talking about in this video. But you go to the marketing people, you get a forecast. You say, okay, here's the number of units we expect to sell in quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4, and then here's the prices that we're going to receive. So then you say, okay, well, 100 units times $5 a unit. Okay, we're expecting sales of $500. So in any event, when you come up with a sales budget based on this marketing forecast, that's going to allow you to put together these other budgets, particularly the production budget. And also there's another budget which I actually didn't write in here because I wanted to make it a little bit easier. I didn't want to have way too many lines and so forth. But there's going to be another budget that we need the sales.
Yes, so like you saw that the most important budget is actually the sales budget. So now you know, so on the basis of the sales budget, so sales will make the budget first, that's your sales and marketing department. And on the basis of this, you'll make a cash budget, administration budget, materials budget, for example, selling and distribution budget. So from the F&B point of view, I'll go into it a little more detail on the next slides. And this has to be done in coordination with all of them. So what happens is, so sales and marketing makes their budgets, they share it with all the other departments in the hotel, and then the other departments make their individual budgets. Then they have a coordination meeting where all of this is discussed, and then your master budget is made, on the basis of which your balance sheet and your profit and loss accounts will be made. So these are all projections for your coming year. So I hope this gives you an idea of how budgets are made. So remember, all of these, cash budget, administrative budget, materials budget, selling and distribution budgets, are all individual budgets. So now in a hotel context, you could have a capital budget, you would have a sales budget again, which is your most important one. You would have for salaries and wages, for labor budget, and of course your expense budget. And cash budget is of course what will help you run your working on your day-to-day basis. Capital budget will help you budget for your one-time purchases or things that you need to upgrade in the hotel. Maybe you need to overall the AC system, the air handling units, or maybe you need to make the car park larger. So or maybe you need to build another floor, or maybe you need to renovate 5 rooms. So all of that will come under types of budgets. So there are some more. So like you saw in the video, so a master budget is a mix of all the other budgets, and the other smaller budgets are your operational budgets, your cash flow budget. So operation, which will help you manage your day-to-day operations. Cash flow, which will give you the cash to be able to manage your day-to-day operations. The sales budget. So this is normally for hotels. It's further broken down into rooms, into banquets, into restaurant business. What is the revenue which we are going to be making from all of this? And then there are 2 more types of budgets. So flexible budgets we have spoken to you about before. Those are your variable budgets. You keep a 10% variant. And your fixed budget are places where your expenditure is fixed. Your income is fixed. So we know. So for example, a school would know that they have this many students. This is the fees that they are going to be getting. This is their income. So that's in that income, they have to work out their expenses. So if their expenses go up more, then they have to increase the fees, because they don't have any, ideally they don't have any other source of income. So this doesn't affect us so much, because at the end of the day, hotels is hardcore business. So like you saw in the video, it says that the sales department, the sales department or the sales and marketing is the one which makes their budgets first. So some of the factors that they keep in mind while making these budgets are, so obviously the numbers, so they know that we have to sell these many number of rooms, and they have to sell those number of rooms every day. So what they do is they see what is happening in the city. So sometimes they study so there are huge events which are planned in the city, and normally these events are planned 2 to 3 years in advance. So for example, you have a major fair, for example, the book fair, or you have a doctor's convention which is going to happen in the city. So the sales and marketing team knows that they have to bid for this event. Then there are sporting events, for example, football league matches or your Olympics. So 4 years hence, Tokyo knew that the Olympics was going to happen in Tokyo, and they were ready for it. So unfortunately, because of the corona, it's going to happen next year. But I'm just giving you an example of the kind of sporting events. So sporting events bring many players into the city. They bring their team, they bring their physiotherapists, coaches, managers. So all these people need places to stay. So they look for hotel rooms, preferably near the stadiums. So you look at the location of your hotel. If you're located near the stadium, great. If you're not, maybe it's a good time to invest in some buses to ferry them from the airport to the hotel, or from the hotel to the stadium. You could look at big business meets. So you have global business meets which happen in the city. There could be film festivals as well. You could have film festivals like the International Film Festival, which happens in India, in Kolkata. Again, so that means lots of actors and actresses, judges, distributors who come and show their movies. So all these people need places to stay. And again, it's a very good opportunity for hotels to go and bid for business in these events. So I've put in some factors which affect F&B as well. So for so if you're doing a restaurant budget, you would actually open a calendar of the next year. You would look at weekends. So weekends is when you make the maximum money. You would look, if it's in banquets, you would block your wedding dates. The wedding dates are also announced well in advance. You would talk to the sales and marketing team and find out if there's any in-house conference or meeting which is planned, because automatically if the hotel is full, automatically food and beverage will do better business. Plus they will have to cater to breakfast, so maybe you have to provide a separate area for breakfast so that your regular guests are not affected, or maybe you have to set up a smaller restaurant somewhere else. So all these thoughts, all this is decided from before. And you also look at the number of dry days. So for those days, you will not budget any alcohol sales, because the government has already decided the dry days and announced them from before. And you can block them off as days when you will not be making any money on alcohol. Festivals, Durga Puja is another very big event which you can look at and plan for. And maybe you could do a staycation, that you come and stay in the hotel and we can take you for tours in and around the city to show you the various pujas. If the hotel is in a major tourist destination, then you would look at the tourist visiting patterns and plan according to that. So that information will be got from the tourism board, and of course historical information, as in what has been happening through the years. Christmas is again another big reason for people to spend money. They've worked hard throughout the year and they feel they need a break. So normally Christmas and New Year. So for India especially, many people from outside India come visiting their friends and families. The weather is good. The cities are all dressed up for the festivities, and they spend a good weekend, a good 10 days in the city, dining out, taking their families out. So that is again a huge area which can be targeted and taken into account while planning your budgets. Of course, there are many, many, many more factors. So there are many things which you know which will happen, and there are many things which you don't know also which could happen. So whenever we are planning for a restaurant, there are two things which we actually have to keep in mind: our number of covers and our APC. So you can always increase the APC. That will definitely give you a push in sales. But again, your inflation would also go up. So inflation would affect the amount of money you're making, because your food costs would go up. And also, many people who used to come to you regularly might be offended by the fact that you have raised prices. So then maybe the number of visits will fall. So whenever you do a price increase, it should always be a very gentle price increase. So when they look at the price increase, they'll say, yes, yes, of course, it was time that they did it. Or yes, seeing the price of potatoes and onions, it's a must. But it shouldn't be so much that people are, the regulars who come in and they order without looking at the menu. When after they eat, they'll get the bill and they look at it with shock. Oh my God, this meal used to cost me 2,000 rupees. It cost me 2,500. So then you have to very sheepishly say, actually, we've had to increase our prices. And then the guest will think, oh my God, next time I'll have to have a closer look at the menu and then order. So the stages of budgeting, I've already been through it. So you can go through it more on your own time. So this is the flow chart which I had shown you. So this just goes into more of a detail. So this will actually help you study while you're going through it. and it's more or less says the same thing, but there is one important factor which I wanted to say over uh, here is that the main master budget is prepared. It contains the main details of all the other budgets and concludes with a budgeted income statement and a statement of the financial position. So once this is made, what I really want you to know is the overall plan, remember, is for 1 year. So for today, 1 year seems really far away. So what hotels and food and beverage, what they normally do is they break it up into smaller periods. So you break it up into a month, or you'll break it up into a week, and announce this to the staff, to the team, so that they can work. They'll find the budgets more achievable and easier to manage than instead of telling them that you have to achieve 2 crores. But if you just tell them that you have to attain every week, our budget is 80,000, or every day we have to make 80,000, it seems so much more achievable than just saying we have to make 2 crores or 3 crores every month. So there are many advantages of making budgets. I spoke to you about this in our uses as well, but I'm just going to go through it again because this will also tell you the factors which we keep in mind while making the budget. So remember, you have a cost center and you have a profit center. So your cost centers would normally, for an F&B scenario, the kitchen would be your cost center, the bars, the purchase of all the alcohol would be your cost center, whereas your profit centers would be your restaurants and your bars and your banquets. So remember, whenever you are planning a budget, you can write with whatever figure you want. But if you wish the team to achieve it, it has to be a realistic target. It has to be a target which the team looks at and they will say, yes, this is something we can do. This is something we can achieve. Effective allocation of resources. So like I was saying, so this cuts down on unnecessary expenditures, but it spends the money where you need it the most. So suppose you had a music system in the restaurant which needed repairing, maybe it is time to invest for a new music system. Or maybe it's time to change the speakers. So all this, so when you're making the budget, you're thinking of all this. And you're thinking of all of this and you're planning it. And then you think, which is more important? Is my coffee machine important or is my music system important? Or maybe if I spend something on upgrading the music system, which will cost me 1,000 rupees only, and my music system will work fine, and I use the rest of the money to buy a new coffee machine, which has been troubling us for a really long time. So this is how we try to effectively allocate our resources. So it solves both problems. Your music system gets fixed, plus you get a new coffee machine in the restaurant. Like I was telling you, we set targets which can be achieved. So what happens is when the F&B manager breaks up the entire F&B. So the hotel manager, the general manager will tell the F&B manager that this is your target, 25 crores is your target. So the F&B manager will further break it down into restaurants, into coffee shops, into the poolside, into in-room dining, and of course the substantial bulk will be banquets. So these become delegated budgets. So that is an important term over here. I've highlighted it in green. So these are your delegated budgets. So for example, if room service, it's difficult to sell in room service. You can achieve targets, but a lot of times what happens is the same guests end up eating in the restaurants. So many times what happens is room service is under budget. So if it is under budget, it does not matter because we have to have a room service. But it does not mean that the F&B department as a department is under budget. So maybe you are doing really well in banquets, which will help you achieve your overall budgets. So this also should be explained to the team so that they don't feel demoralized that I wasn't able to achieve my targets in room service because maybe the occupancies were low, or maybe there was conventions in house where the meals were included, or they all had to go out and eat somewhere else. So overall, so even though you are seeing your delegated budgets and you're working very hard on achieving your delegated budgets, you shouldn't lose the bigger picture. So that is why coordination between departments is important, so that you're constantly talking to each other and you try to identify where the guest is going. You're actually literally tracking him or her. So if they are not eating in rooms, maybe they are eating in the Italian restaurant, or maybe they are at the poolside, or maybe they have planned an event. So constant coordination between departments is really very important for people to effectively achieve their results. So this constant coordination also includes sales and marketing, because many times what happens is rooms are sold with including breakfast, or including a dinner, or maybe there's a gala dinner at the end of it. So this they cannot do on their own. They have to do it with the support of banquets or of the F&B department. So maybe if there's a big convention in house, it's good to put them in a separate, dedicate a banquet room to them where they can have all their meals, which makes operations easier on the coffee shop. So all this can only happen with coordination. Monitoring and control, I discussed this before. So there's a constant need to know what is happening, and also to look within to see if things are changing. So if there's a sudden, so poolside will get affected because the monsoons were extra long this year. Nobody swam, so the pool was shut. So the poolside, maybe we have to change the budget, or maybe we have to relook at the budget of the poolside and then change it accordingly, modify it. So maybe we can allocate those funds in banquets which are doing better, those resources in banquets which are doing better, move the staff from poolside to banquets and help them achieve their targets instead of hiring more new people for banquets. And of course, this is a very, very important tool of assessing the manager's performance. So not only are you checking, so this is just maths, pure maths. This is the figure you were supposed to achieve. Did you achieve it? If you did not achieve it, why didn't you achieve it? So if you have achieved the figure, it's fine. There are normally no questions asked. The team is happy. The team celebrates. But if you have not been able to achieve it, then the team has to come up with solutions of how they can solve this problem. So remember, it's not the manager. So even though the manager is accountable at the end of the day, he can only function if he has a good team. So here I have shared a sample of a restaurant's covers, sales and costs, actual versus budget comparison. So what I've tried to do is show you what it looks like in a restaurant setup. In a restaurant, when you're the restaurant manager and you have to deal with budgets on a daily basis, what are you actually doing? So in your Zoom classes, we'll discuss it in more detail, but I hope you're able to see this on the screen. So here it shows you, so there's a cover data. So your breakfast covers were actually 7,500. Your budgeted was 6,550. Last year's was 7,400. The variance is 750. So that means you are 750 above budget and you're 100 more than last year. So both figures look good. Both figures look good. For dinner, on the other hand, your actual budgets were 3,250. Your budgeted were 4,000. Last year you did 3,650 covers. The variance of actual versus budget is 750. So you are down 750 from as per your budget, and you're down from last year by 400. So does this mean that you are making a loss? No, it does not mean that you are making a loss. This just means that you are under budget. So remember, there was a break-even point. So normally we always try to work above the break-even point. So your break-even point might have been 2,500. So keeping that in mind, you have done well. So in the overall picture, you have done well. But as per your personal target, you should have achieved 4,000, which you did 3,250, which is okay. And of course, you it's only 400 cover variant. It's only a 750 cover variance, which you could make up over the subsequent months. So this was in terms of covers. This is in terms of sales. So these are actual sales of the amount of money you made. So you can go through it in detail. And then we have your manager's salaries. So how much were you paying last year? How much are you paying this year? So the salaries haven't changed. So maybe if he performs well over here, maybe you could give him or her a raise in the next budget. So this is what it looks like. Please go through it in your own time. So lastly, after all of that, do budgets. So budgets seem to be awesome. They seem to be a very important tool, which they are. But do they have limitations? Yes, they do have limitations. And while making the budgets, it's very important to keep in mind the limitations as well. So one is, so remember, we went into so much of trouble in making the budget. So what if we suddenly have to change it? Like we had to do it for the coronavirus, where from achieving our budgets to going to not achieving our budgets at all and no scope. So going from 100 covers to 0 covers. So that took a lot of time. It took a lot of time for us to digest that maybe this is going to happen. And to put that paperwork in place also takes a lot of time. So the budgets itself lacks this flexibility. So sometimes it takes us a long time to adjust the budgets. So adjusting the budgets is one of the biggest limitations of budgets, because each item is, like you saw, dependent on something else. So if we were to change one thing, we have to change everything. So that is why budgets are sometimes considered not flexible or non-flexible. Also, there's a lot of emphasis on short-term goals. So this short-term goals, so you think that I'll take this banquet function and I will achieve my budget. But what does that banquet function do to the image of the hotel? Is that banquet function good for the image of the hotel? Or you have taken this business on a particularly low rate. So you think that this is a one-time gesture which you have done for the guest. But what happens is that guest will come back exactly after 2 months and say, I want another function like that at that same rate because you gave it to me that time. And maybe you were able to sanction that rate as a one-time gesture, but the guest will think it's going to happen all the time. So you have to be very, very careful that you should not sacrifice too much on attaining your budgets. There has to be a balance between the philosophy of the company, between the mission and the vision of the company, and your budgets. The third point, yes, is a very sad point, but it's the truth. It converts all aspects of the organizational performance in monetary terms. So like I was telling you, it measures your performance. So this was the figure. Did you achieve it? So when you are judging the performance of a person only on the basis of monetary values, what happens to the other factors? What happens to the fact that every single guest went happy? What happens to the fact that there were no complaints? What happens to the fact that your team works really well together? Where is the measure for all of that? So normally in an appraisal system, meeting budgets is only one aspect of it. So in a good appraisal system, the other factors of how you were as a team leader, How did your team work under you? What was the guest satisfaction? Would be the other factors as well. So the organization should only not look at the monetary values, but also should look what goes behind the scenes to attain the monetary values. Of course, skills and experience are required for budgetary control. Skills and experience are required to achieve budgets. They are required to make budgets, because as a new manager, sometimes you can overcommit, and once you overcommit, it is very difficult to go back, and you have to be really very restrictive. So what they say, for a good budget, it should be conservative. It should be conservative means you promise, I will do more than last year, but not too much and not too less. Setting budgets, so pursuit of budgets becomes more or less the same as a short-term goal. Setting budgets for a new or a one-off project. So if you have a new project, so you need to make another restaurant, or you need to make another floor, or you need to make another hotel, would be something you're working on for the first time, or you need to make another wing of the restaurant. So you are making budgets from scratch, and you fix your prices. But the problem with these projects is that they tend to carry on, and if the projects carry on, prices go up, costs escalate, and you go over budget. So that's why in most constructions you'll see that they are always over budget. It's very, and also the time period. So you say we will complete this project in 1 year, but construction always takes more than a year. So it's very difficult to predict what will happen next year. So it's very difficult to set budgets for new projects or that one project which you are going to be doing. And yes, making budgets is a time consuming and an expensive proposition. It takes up many man hours. You're going through a lot of data. Your managers are very busy making budgets. So because you're doing that, there's something missing on the shop floor, which is your presence and dealing with guests. So at the end of the day, our guest is our God. So you have to balance it out. So the managers actually work through the nights making budgets, or they work in the break shifts while making the budgets, so that in the time of when the restaurants are busy and they're in operation, they are on the shop floor managing the restaurant as well. So that pretty much brings me to the end of my presentation of budgets. I hope to see you in the Zoom class. So I'm ending with the thought that whenever you're making budgets, like life, it's better to follow the middle path, not too much, not too less. Be conservative, and it always pays off in the end. Thank you very much.